Matt Schaff and Jared Smola of DraftSharks.com here to reveal our pre-NFL draft dynasty rookie rankings for 2024. You can find rookie rankings on plenty of fantasy sites, of course, but ours are different. It's not based on gut feelings of these rookies. I like this guy, so he'll go here. He plays this position, so he'll go here. Ours are powered by actual projections. Jared, it's early. We don't have landing spots yet. What kind of things go into projecting these rookies before we have that vital piece of info?
Our current, projections for these rookies are largely tied to projected draft capital. Draft capital ends up being the most predictive variable for these rookies anyways. Then we do factor in player archetype stuff. Like, this guy's a downfield receiver. He might have a lower catch rate, but a higher yards per catch. Rushing quarterbacks, obviously, we're going to give them more rushing production, that type of stuff. But again, it's draft capital at this point that's driving a large chunk of those 2024 projections for these rookies.
And draft capital factors heavily into our Draft Sharks rookie model score as well. We'll be referring to those throughout the show. And, draft capital is going to be decided later in April. We'll get that data. That will change a lot of the things here, but a lot of the guys won't change because a lot of them are projected to go where they probably will go in the NFL draft. And that includes the top 3 as we dig into the top 12 of these dynasty rookie rankings. It's the wide receivers up top, Jared, and that shouldn't surprise anybody that's watching or listening. Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Nabers, Odunze. Those are the top 3 in our rookie rankings for the one quarterback format. Do you see any separation among these 3 players at this point? And if so, how much?
For me personally, Marvin Harrison Jr. and Malik Nabers are in a small tier by themselves ahead of Odunze. And then Odunze is in a tier well above the rest of these guys. They're all pretty close if you look at our DMVP value. And of course, DMVP value is our, ultimate measure of these rookies. It's on a scale from 0 to 100, helps you compare players both at, the same position and across positions, which I think is where it's most useful. That's most challenging when it comes to dynasty. So you look at Marvin Harrison Jr., 76.8 DMVP points. Again, tops among rookies in one quarterback dynasty leagues. It's also a wide receiver 10 overall and less than 1 DMVP point from wide receiver 8. So, we already value Marvin Harrison Jr. as a, pretty clear top 10 dynasty wide receiver.
And it's interesting that Malik Nabers is as close to him as he is. It kind of makes you wonder if Marvin Harrison Jr. were less heralded, maybe not the son of an NFL great. It makes you wonder if maybe Nabers would be ahead of him, but it's close enough that that's nitpicking at this point, I think.
Yeah, I think Harrison probably beats Nabers on safety. You talk about, the NFL bloodlines. Marvin Harrison Jr. does have the 2 seasons of huge production, whereas, Malik Nabers really only has last year. His 2022 was good, but Marvin Harrison Jr. was better. It is interesting. You look at the Draft Sharks rookie model, Marvin Harrison Jr. is ahead of Malik Nabers, but it's just barely. And it's only because Harrison Jr. is projected to go higher in the NFL draft right now. If, Nabers for some reason goes higher, even if they go back to back, I think, post draft, we might end up with Malik Nabers, at least in the rookie model, as the top wide receiver in this class. And I don't think that's crazy. I think you could argue that Nabers has more ultimate fantasy upside than Marvin Harrison Jr. because I do think Nabers is the more explosive player. I think he's the guy who, is going to make more big plays, probably, potentially be more efficient on a per target basis as a pro.
Both look like good picks for dynasty rookie drafts. Both will go early. Odunze, like you said, not that far behind them. I think those 3 wideouts make a pretty easy top 3 for one quarterback dynasty rookie drafts. You're going to find 39 more rookie wideouts ranked along with those 3 in our first ever rookie guide, plus our top 28 running backs ranked, our top 8 quarterbacks ranked, our top 17 tight ends ranked, scouting reports on the top 50 players. All of that is free if you just join the Draft Sharks email list, which of course is then going to send you valuable emails throughout the summer and into the regular season. Jared, on to number 4 and 5 on this list. We get our next wideout in Brian Thomas Jr., an exciting athlete, numbers probably, no doubt, impacted by playing with Malik Nabers, who looks excellent, but also quite a big gap, I think, between Thomas and Odunze. Yeah. And if you look at the Draft Sharks model score, we see 0.81 points separating Odunze from Thomas. Just to add some context to that, if you go another 0.81 down from there, that later span includes 8 more wide receivers and almost gets to Malachi Corley. So pretty big gap between Odunze and number 4, Brian Thomas.
He is my wide receiver 4 as well, but he's much closer to the rest of the guys behind him than he is to Odunze. We have Draft Sharks rookie model scores now going back to 2021. Odunze lands 5th on that list of all rookie wide receivers since 2021, just to give you an idea how strong a prospect he is. Brian Thomas is down 11th on that list. So still a strong score, but a clear gap between these guys. And Brian Thomas, analytically, he's good, not great, has just the one big year of college production. Even then, 2.61 yards per route run, 36 in the nation, not bad. He was just 92nd in PFF receiving grade last year. I really liked Brian Thomas's tape, though, even more than I expected to. He's obviously a big play threat. He's 6'3", 209 pounds with 4.33 speed. I was really impressed with his ball skills as well, though. Like he can win in contested situations, even when he doesn't create separation. I think he needs to develop as a route runner to become, like an NFL team's #1 wide receiver. But you look at the size and athleticism, I think he has the potential to develop there. There's wide receiver 1 fantasy level upside here if he kind of hits his ceiling.
Brock Bowers currently sits 5th in the overall. I would take him 4th ahead of Brian Thomas, just in case. He's possibly, we'll leave it at possibly, the best tight end prospect ever. There's really no way to know that for sure, but I'm going to go ahead and take a shot on that possibility at that point over, an exciting wide receiver in Brian Thomas, but probably not a special talent versus the position historically. The big question for Brock Bowers, biggest question, I guess, is his size. Historically, he's small for a tight end, but I think that we're probably going to see that position shrink going forward, especially for the pass catching types. He's very close in size to Trey McBride, Dalton Kincaid, Sam Laporta. So if we're, weighing Brock Bowers versus previous tight ends, looks small. If we weigh him versus what is currently the in vogue receiving tight end, he fits.
Yeah, it's tough to worry about Bowers' size when he truly dominated at Georgia, against SEC competition. Just incredible college production, broke out as a true freshman, led Georgia in catches, receiving yards, and receiving touchdowns all 3 seasons on campus. At his best after the catch, 8.5 yards after the catch per reception for his career. That's an insane number. It'd be an insane number for a wide receiver. For a tight end, it's even crazier. So I think the reason Thomas Jr. checks in ahead of Bowers in our current Dynasty rankings is just positional value, but I would have no issue taking Bowers ahead of Thomas in Dynasty rookie drafts.
Yeah, and by the way, if I'm sitting there with a long-term answer already at tight end or even 2 tight ends on my Dynasty roster, I might very well just go for the wide receiver for just that reason. There's not a whole lot you can do with that 3rd tight end. I also think, though, 5 is right where I would consider strongly looking at possibilities to trade down.
For sure. I mean, we'll get to Troy Franklin in a bit here, but I don't have much of a gap between Brian Thomas and Troy Franklin, who's going, 4 or 5 picks later in these rookie drafts. As of now, again, this is all going to change post-draft. But if I think I can pick up some extra capital or assets and still get Troy Franklin instead of Brian Thomas, that's a trade I would definitely make.
And if you're interested in making trades, you can check our free Dynasty trade value charts now. Those rookie picks for this year are in there with assumed players to help really evaluate what that pick is worth. If you want to go even deeper than the value charts, the Dynasty trade calculator goes much deeper. You can find that in the Trade Navigator as a DS Insider. It'll find your ideal trade partner by searching through all the rosters in your league. It will gauge the impact of that potential trade on your roster, on the other team's roster before you even make the offer. So really gives you all the info you need to make the best trades in your Dynasty league. Ranks 6 through 9, Jared, we've got Caleb Williams, Jayden Daniels, Jonathon Brooks, Troy Franklin. So we've got our first quarterback, our second quarterback in very close succession, and our first running back. 6 is high for a QB in this one quarterback format. Why is Caleb Williams so high, and why is Jayden Daniels so high along with him?
Yeah, I was going to make that same note that this is high for quarterbacks in a 1 quarterback dynasty league. I think it partly speaks to how strong prospects both these guys are. I think it also speaks a little bit to, I think we're a bit below consensus on the rest of these guys. The wide receivers in particular, they might be a bit overvalued at this point. Caleb Williams, I mean, we've seen him for 3 years now just be a dominant college quarterback. I think college production kind of speaks for itself. Jayden Daniels, not nearly as safe as Caleb Williams, I don't think, but from a fantasy perspective, you talk about the rushing upside, 1,250 rushing yards last year if you omit sacks. 10.4 yards per carry. Jayden Daniels last year had 41 runs of 10 plus yards. That was 6th most in the entire country, including all the running backs. So this guy is like a Lamar Jackson level prospect as a runner. So even if you don't believe in him as a passer, which I think there's a lot to like about him as a passer as well, but just from the rushing upside alone, like this guy could be a top 5 quarterback pretty quickly.
And even more recently, he's like Anthony Richardson from last year, but with more starting experience in college. Throws a great deep ball, had production in that area, highly productive runner. So, yeah, I'm chasing the fantasy upside, not worrying about the risk. There is some separation from Drake May. We'll talk about him outside the top 12. Jonathon Brooks, the first running back on our list here. I'm wary of him for 2024 because of the ACL tear that ended his final college season. Not a significant concern for me for Dynasty, though.
Yeah, Brooks is interesting because we have less than one full season of him as a lead back in college because he obviously sat behind Bijan Robinson his first couple of years at Texas, and then, as you said, had that November ACL tear. But Brooks did average 114 rushing yards per game on 6.1 yards per carry in his 10 full games last season. Also had 29 receiving yards per game. So you look at the size, the college production, like he looks like a guy who could be a 3-down back at the next level. He also has the top film score in our rookie model. So, the film experts who we trust like this guy quite a bit as well.
Now, Troy Franklin's the last guy in this group, and I know that you're a fan of Troy Franklin. So why don't you tell me why I should be as well?
Yeah, sophomore breakout for Troy Franklin, which we like. He is an early declare. We like that. Really big 2023 junior season, was 6th in the entire country in receiving yards, tied for 3rd in receiving touchdowns, 17.1 yards per catch. He's just an excellent downfield receiver. Last year, Franklin was top 10 among all wide receivers in catches, receiving yards, and receiving touchdowns on targets 20-plus yards downfield. Can also make big plays after the catch. To me, the only reason really why Franklin is below Brian Thomas in the rankings is Franklin's just 184 pounds. He's 6'2", 184. He's got a wiry frame. That's a bit of a concern for his, projection to the NFL level. But again, it wasn't a problem in college. I think if he's deployed correctly, it shouldn't be too big of a problem in the NFL.
You can read Jared's full dynasty value report on Troy Franklin on draftsharks.com right now. We've got that one. We've got 16 others as we speak, more coming pretty much every weekday. They dive into the college career, the college stats, the film, even the NFL outlook, where we try to project the team fit and look at how a player might pay off in the NFL or not, if it's, if we don't like the outlook for that player. So check those out. Those are all free reads. And rounding out the top 12 here, Jared, we've got Xavier Worthy, Trey Benson, Adonai Mitchell. So do you see a tier break between Troy Franklin and Xavier Worthy?
Not a big one. I mean, Worthy, from a production standpoint, did all you could ask for in college. Was a strong producer in all 3 of his seasons at Texas, even last year. I mean, there's a lot of people that like AD Mitchell more than Xavier Worthy, but Worthy, on the same team, beat Mitchell in catches, yards per route. Like he was just a better wide receiver last year. The concerns with Worthy, I mean, the big one is he's 165 pounds. That's a weight that we don't see a ton of NFL wide receivers produce it. I think the guys you're looking at would be like a Marquise Brown, Devonta Smith, Tank Dell. Those are the types that have sort of bucked the trend and produced, and maybe Worthy will join that group. The other concern with Xavier Worthy for me is that the film guys just don't seem to like him as much as the production says they should. Lance Zierlein of NFL.com has Worthy at wide receiver 13. Even if you look at Pro Football Focus receiving grades last year, Worthy was just 125th out of 286 qualifiers. So, this is a case where the film and the production don't totally line up. We'll see what the NFL thinks about him, based on where he goes in the draft later this month.
Yeah, I think you want to temper your excitement, but I am still excited for him, and I'm curious to see where Xavier Worthy goes. I really like that he beat Adonai Mitchell in receiving on the same team last year. And Mitchell, to me, I'm worried about. I actually took him in our one quarterback mock draft a while back and immediately regretted it because he looks like he has bust potential. 33rd in this wide receiver class in career yards per route, despite expected yards per route near the top of the class. Texas ran a lot of 2 wide out sets. He had plenty of opportunity, did not maximize the enticing physical gifts that Mitchell brings. And that's what bugs me, especially if we're talking about a first round rookie pick.
Yeah, there's really not much in Mitchell's production profile to point at as a positive, at least, relative to his dynasty rookie ADP right now. And you might say, oh, well, he must be awesome on film. All these film guys must love him. He's just 14th among wide receivers in our film average in the rookie model. So even there, he doesn't score really well. It really is. He's 6'2", 205 pounds. 9.99 relative athletic score. So he is athletic as it gets. He is still 21 years old. He's an early declare. So there's things to like about him. But again, he is far from a flawless prospect. I'm okay at this point, at least being below consensus on AD Mitchell.
Relative athletic score, of course, means that his cousins are also very good at football. That's going to round out our pre-NFL draft top 12 for the Dynasty rookie rankings. in one quarterback format. It's bound to be some change, so make sure you check back after the NFL draft. Now, Jared, I mentioned that mock draft that we did for the one quarterback format. We've got 5 rounds up on the site. You can check out the full article. You can check out the write-ups. Looking at the first round of that, it did kind of go along with our rankings, which is not surprising when you get a group of draft sharks together to draft it. Mm-hmm. But looking at that round 1, we had Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Nabers, Odunze, Brock Bowers, Brian Thomas Jr., Caleb Williams at 6, like he is in our rankings, Adonai Mitchell right after that, then Xavier Worthy, Troy Franklin, Jonathon Brooks, Jayden Daniels, Drake May among the top 12. I think it's interesting that the top 3 QBs all went round 1, but I think that's appropriate for this point, especially while we're waiting for draft capital to sort out the running backs, the wide receivers, waiting for landing spots to see who gets a boost or who looks worse. What stood out to you from this round 1 of our one quarterback mock draft?
To me, the biggest thing, and maybe the only big mover, if we did this again now, and this was about 2 weeks ago, would be Jayden Daniels. I think is, if you can get him at 111, even in a one quarterback league, I think that's good value. Again, he'd be my 107. I'm taking him ahead of the Texas wide receivers. I'm even taking him over Troy Franklin, who I like, I think a bit above consensus. Other than that, I think, this rookie mock would probably go pretty similarly if we did it again right now.
And it's really not all that different than how ADP is right now. All 3 of those top 3 quarterbacks sit among the top 9. If you look at the rookie ADP, that's available on draftsharks.com right now. We've got ADP for rookie drafts, for startup drafts and Dynasty, for best ball, plenty of other formats. So check it out. We've got your format available on there. It lets you know what the market values are on these players right now. So you don't just have to go with our thoughts, your thoughts, or anybody else's rankings. No real surprises to me among that ADP throughout the top 24. Maybe a mild surprise that Michael Penix is inside of round 2 by ADP. I would bet that changes some as we get draft capital and landing spots sorting out wide receivers and running backs. Or, if we get Penix going earlier, maybe he settles into that range for good. So we'll see where Penix lands and exactly where he is in ADP. Can't say that I'm going to be excited about him or Bo Nix among this 13 to 24 group in a one quarterback format. I don't think that they have difference making upside like Jayden Daniels and even Drake May might. That group from 13 to 18, the next 6 players on the list, Ladd McConkey, MarShawn Lloyd, Drake May, Jaylen Wright, Blake Corum, Keon Coleman. Mentioned Drake May is inside round 1 in our 1QB mock draft. He's inside the top 9 in ADP. You can quibble that maybe 15 is too low in our rankings right now. I'm not going to fight you. I'm fine with him being a little bit higher than that. Who stands out for you among this group of 6, either good or bad?
Yeah, I hate to be a Debbie Downer, but there's no good standout for me in this range. This is, again, I mentioned it earlier. I think this is a range where I'm just generally lower than consensus on these guys. And the draft capital could change that. It probably will change it for at least a guy or 2. But at this point, this is the range where I'd be looking to trade out of in rookie drafts, whether it's, for 2025 picks or for, a veteran player that can help me win this year. So nothing on the good side for me. Guy below consensus on in this range is Keon Coleman. He's a contested catch guy, and I've just been burned by those types. So there's definitely some personal bias here where I don't want to get burned by this type of player again. But even analytically, you look at Keon Coleman, the college production just wasn't that great. Even last year, Keon Coleman was not the best wide receiver on his team. Johnny Wilson, who is projected to be a day 3 pick, beat Keon Coleman in targets per route run, yards per target, yards per route, PFF receiving grade. By most measures, Johnny Wilson was a better wide receiver last year than Keon Coleman. So I'm kind of shying away from Keon Coleman at this point. Again, of course, we'll see where he goes in the NFL draft, both, capital-wise and landing spot.
Yeah, I can remember the in-season highlights, and I was expecting to like Keon Coleman a lot better after watching those, but make sure that you don't fall in love with those highlights too much. I'll be curious to see where he goes as well. I'm very interested to see how high MarShawn Lloyd goes in the NFL draft. I'm very interested to see the general order of running backs because I think it's difficult to create a hierarchy this year, much more so than in previous years. So I think Lloyd is interesting because he has the traits. 4.46 second 40 time at 220 pounds. Wonderful combo. Gives him a 93rd percentile speed score. No idea about the receiving. He had minimal receiving exposure, but not enough to say, yeah, he can catch the ball for sure. And he's going to be a 3-down back in the NFL. Limited carries in college as well. Dealt with some injuries, transferred from South Carolina to USC. So I think him maybe even more than other running backs that got a lot more work in college will learn something from the NFL draft capital that's spent, whether he goes somewhere on day 2, whether it's day 3. He's sitting 14th in our rankings right now. I think that's assuming that he gets good draft capital. If he goes round 4 or later, probably going to drop from that range.
Yeah, the running back class is interesting to me. I think it's generally viewed as a pretty poor class, and like production wise, that's probably accurate. There are a lot of big, fast, athletic running backs in this class with, MarShawn Lloyd and Jaylen Wright being the two that stick out to me most. So like, I think those two in particular, if they get day 2 draft capital to a pretty nice landing spot, they could be pretty big risers in the post draft rankings.
Few more running backs in the next group, ranks 19 through 24. We've got first wide receiver Ricky Pearsall from Florida, then Roman Wilson, Braylon Allen, Xavier Leggett, Will Shipley, and Audric Estime. For me, Jared, it's again about the running backs. And like we said, we're going to need some sorting here because I can't look at this group and say, I love this guy. I love this guy. I hate that guy. They're all like, he could be fine. If he goes in round 2, I'm interested. If he goes in round 5, I'm going to be less interested. It's really tough to build the hierarchy this year. What about you here?
Yeah, I'm in on Audric Estime, at least pre-draft. We'll see where he goes because he did run that 4.71 40 time at the combine, which was definitely a bad look. He improved at his pro day. His time was reported at 4.58. Never know exactly how much to trust the pro day times, but it definitely sounds like it was better than the combine time. Which is interesting about Estime, though, like from an athletic standpoint, is he was awesome in both the vertical and broad jumps at the combine. 86th percentile vert, 87th percentile broad at 221 pounds. So I don't think he's a bad athlete. He might be on the slower side, but he's not a bad athlete. He had awesome college production last year, 1,300 rushing yards, 18 touchdowns. That was a Notre Dame record. 6.4 yards per carry for Estime last year. He was top 8 in the country in both PFF rushing grade and yards after contact per attempt. Probably not going to be a 3-down back. There's not a ton of receiving upside here, I don't think, but he could definitely be a leader in carries in his NFL backfield, be a guy who gets the goal line work, definitely someone who could be a lower end fantasy starter. So I'm interested to see exactly how high Estime goes in the draft later this month.
And young. He won't turn 21 until after he's drafted. So that means that there's probably further development coming. So that makes him intriguing. I'm very curious to see where he goes as well. Also curious about Bucky Irving, who didn't make the top 24, mostly because he sucked at the scouting combine. Fortunately for him, he comes along at a time where we just saw Kyren Williams break out from his crappy athleticism with opportunity and have a monster season for the Rams. So what I want to know is not, I'm not saying Bucky Irving next Kyren Williams because trying to find that guy is a mistake, but I want to see if an NFL team is like, I don't really care about the athletic testing. I'm taking Bucky Irving early in the 3rd round because of what he showed me at Oregon. And then that, of course, could point to plenty of work in the NFL. So, he's somebody that I think could climb into the top 24, or maybe he's just dead.
Man, I loved Bucky Irving pre-combine because of the pass catching ability and even his advanced rushing metrics, missed tackles for us, yards after contact, all that looked awesome. The athleticism is definitely a concern. I mean, even comparing Kyren Williams to Bucky Irving is a bit disrespectful to Kyren Williams. Kyren Williams had a 3.46 relative athletic score. Bucky Irving's at 2.20. Now, the pass catching stuff, might save Irving, right? Like, because that's where he's going to score fantasy points because he's a smaller back. We never thought he was going to be a guy who, even carried, 15 times per game in the NFL. But if he can just carve out, that primary pass catching role, he could still be useful in PPR. But the athleticism might tank his NFL draft stock. I wouldn't be surprised if he goes in like round 6 or something. And then he's going to be tough to be excited about if he does fall that far in the NFL draft.
He did also run with more power in college, though, than you would expect from a 198-pound guy or whatever exactly he is. Did well in yards after contact per carry. It hurt my heart to have him flunk the scouting combine because I took him in my first 2 FFPC best ball drafts this year. So we'll see. I'm intrigued still, curious to see what happens, disheartened by how he performed at the combine. Who's your top candidate, Jared, to move into the top 24 among guys not currently in that group?
Tight end Jatavian Sanders for me, who I think is a bit underrated at this point just because Brock Bowers is such an awesome prospect. It kind of has Sanders going overlooked. I think the same sort of thing happened with Kyle Pitts and Pat Freiermuth a few years ago, where Pitts was just this, uber prospect. Freiermuth was a good prospect, but I think he was a bit overlooked because of Kyle Pitts. Jatavian Sanders is interesting. He broke out as a sophomore at Texas. He was top 3 on that Texas team in catches, receiving yards, and touchdowns. Set another new career high in receiving yards last year with 682, despite AD Mitchell joining Xavier Worthy to, give Texas one of the best wide receiver duos in college football. Sanders, 15.2 yards per catch last season, 7.7 yards after catch per reception. Again, not quite Brock Bowers level, but a really strong mark for a tight end. He's a good athlete, 8.47 relative athletic score, a bit undersized at 245 pounds, but he's going to be out there at the NFL level to catch the ball, which is what we want. I actually compared him to Delaney Walker as I was kind of watching Sanders and going through his profile. Walker was kind of that undersized catch first tight end. So I think it'd be great if Sanders goes in the second round. I think worst case, he's going to be a day 2 pick. I think he's someone who, probably not as a rookie will be a fantasy factor, but by year 2, there's definitely top 12 fantasy upside here when you look at the pass catching ability and athleticism.
I'm watching Malachi Corley in this range as well. He's this year's next Deebo Samuel, which is what every guy that's thick at wide receiver and catches short passes and then runs for yardage afterward. That's the comp for every one of those guys now. I'm not going to actually comp him to Deebo Samuel because that's silly. You don't want to comp to the top end guy, but I think that we're at a point right now where that type of player could get pushed into round 2. If he goes in the first half of round 2, I think we'll see him climb these rankings. I'm a little bit concerned at just how much of his college production came off of screens. More than 50% of his yardage came on screen plays. That's not really indicative of somebody that's going to necessarily work well and produce consistently in the NFL. But like I said, if he gets picked early, that's going to indicate that some team wants him to be heavily involved. Probably move up our rankings. Will be interesting somewhere, I think, in round 2, if that happens, of rookie drafts.
Yeah, I know Daniel Jeremiah and Lance Erline, too, with the film guys we trust the most, both have Corley as a top 50 prospect in this class. So again, I'm with you. If he gets that type of draft capital as a signal that his team wants to make him a big part of the offense, because I think he might need those manufactured touches to produce in the NFL. But if he gets them, he could definitely be a big time fantasy asset.
He also showed out at the Senior Bowl, and I think if he does get that early draft position, it indicates that a team thinks he can get on the field early. Maybe that's where the short passes do help. It might be easier to get that into your offense, to manufacture touches.
There's going to be a lot of shuffling in our post-draft rankings, because I do think, again, we've said a lot of these wide receiver prospects have flaws. So I think based on where they go in the draft and, which team they end up on, you're going to see a lot of movement in our rankings after the draft.
Yeah, try not to be too married to anybody in this class. That's my big takeaway. There are plenty of guys to like, and I'm not telling you not to like the class overall, but what I'm going to do is not be too married to specific prospects. Try to look at the tiers, try to look at where I can move down and still get somebody similar. The rookie projections, like we've been saying, are live. They are driving these dynasty rankings, not just for the rookies, but for the vets as well. We take our award-winning projections, we add historical aging curves specific not only to position, but also player types, because you age differently if you are a running back that runs into the middle of the line versus somebody that mostly catches passes, or if you're a first round wide receiver versus, a day 3 slot guy. You get projections for the coming season, for 3 years out, for 5 years out, even 10 years out, which seems crazy, but our system's doing it. Those numbers, of course, power the draft war room. It's been the secret weapon of Draft Sharks members for years now, consistently upgraded along the way. You can now use the draft war room in your dynasty startup draft. You can use it in your annual rookie drafts and whatever other formats you like to play. The same sync that powers that draft war room will also help you into the regular season, make trades, work the waiver wires. We got you covered on all formats. If you're not already a DS Insider, join us today to power up your dynasty play.